Okay, so, hi, my name's Ryan, I'm with Clearroom. This is for YouTube. And I'm going to show you how to throw a pumpkin today. So it's going to be in two parts. Today is about throwing the pumpkin, and then next week, at the same time, we're going to do carving the pumpkin. So you come next week prepared with like your drawing or something you want to carve, because I'll show you how to do that later. So I'm going to get into throwing. Hopefully everybody here, everybody watching has got pretty okay wheel skills. I'm going to kind of breeze through most of it, but then I'll slow down once it comes to the important parts. So let me just throw this down. I don't suggest any particular clay or clay body. I'll if I turn on the wheel. There we go. You can pretty much use anything. And for my pumpkins, I used raku clay. So I tended to raku my pumpkins. I really like the process. I haven't really made any pumpkins since I moved to San Francisco 8 years ago, because it's really hard to raku your stuff here. But I learned from my first pottery job how to do pumpkins. It was kind of a traditional thing. We would start in early summer making pumpkins and get them all ready for fall and Halloween. I didn't really throw them too much. My throwing skills weren't that great at that time. But I did get to carve a couple. You know, there were the traditional, like kind of triangle eyes, those crooked grin pumpkins. But I wanted to do like more fancy ones, like stuff that people like spend actual time on. Because I found it was like such a shame that people like spend so long carving out like Obama's face or something and have it decay on them over time. So I got really into pumpkin making for that reason. And so I wanted to share the knowledge. Kind of make sort of a pumpkin carving contest out of it. Hopefully you'll put your pumpkins on Instagram and share. So I'm opening up the clay, and I want to go all the way to the bottom. I like to have my pumpkins kind of open at the bottom, though they're going to be closed forms. Having them open provides a little bit of a space where you can stick a light or a lamp underneath and illuminate the jack-o'-lanterns later. If you just want more of a pumpkin though, you can always leave it closed or keep a bottom on there. And there's not really any set dimensions with these pumpkins. Pumpkins can take on like more of a fat, kind of rounded shape. They can also be tall and skinny as well. So it kind of depends on what you want. I'm going to go for more of the fat shape, so I'm opening up a little bit wider. To start, get rid of all that moisture.
And that's all the way down to the wheel head there?
Yep.
Like, so you just have a column of clay right now?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's just a donut. Hollow donut. No outtakes here. All in tape. So, and I'm throwing on a bat as well. It'll make it a lot easier to take it off without distorting. Pull. I'm just going to make a cylinder at first. So directing that clay in. bubble out.
Is that 4 tons of plate that you have there?
Yeah, so I'm doing the medium size here.
Cool.
So just 4-pounder. And I'm using the Playroom Signature Party Mix for my pumpkin here, so it'll have a whole bunch of different characteristics. Good and bad. Never know. But we expert wedgers with the party mix. Getting these walls established first, and then I'm gonna start to collar and bring this in. One more.
So at this point, are the walls the same thickness throughout?
For the most part, there's a little bit down here, which I'm gonna just grab a teeny bit from, and that will be my last pool. Because this is the last pool, I'm gonna like do a little bit of shaping, so you'll see me round it out just a little bit. Towards the top. Okay.
How tall would you say that is?
Probably 8 or 9 inches. Again, it's a little bit taller at first, and then as we collar, as we shape a little bit, it might balloon out, go out a little bit. So just have this right with me. So I'm gonna give more of that like rounded shape for this pumpkin, pushing out with my rib, starting at the bottom here. Strengthening a little bit more towards the shoulder. And leaving a little bit towards the top. So this main part right here is where I'm going to have the body of my pumpkin. And I'm going to start to collar and bring in the top. So if you don't collar, there's tons of different ways to do it. You got your gang sign Illuminati way to do it. You got the Homer Simpson, Bart Simpson stranglehold kind of way to do it. And so I kind of go between the two a little bit, starting where those shoulders are, where I establish those shoulders. Bring it in, and as soon as I get towards the top, actually hook my finger over the top, kind of keep the top from buckling too much. Chances are it'll buckle, and that's okay. And I'm going as slow as a pull.
Now, I looked at the slate again. This one is a great one. This is huge.
And with collaring, if you're not too familiar with collaring, the general rule that I kind of follow is kind of coloring twice before needing to pull again. So my next pull, I'm going to just kind of a finger pull where my inside hand's a little lower than my outside hand to allow kind of an encouragement to bring form in, strengthen those shoulders a little bit more. Also, releasing the top here. The great thing with pumpkins is it's going to be really forgiving, and you'll see what I mean if you're not the best with collaring. So I'm going to continue to bring this in, over. Alright, so we're continuing to collar this in to the top. pumpkin. I have kind of a squat design anyway that I want to try just with putting our Playroom logo on this pumpkin.
Nice.
With another pumpkin carved on top of it. So starting low, bringing this in.
Is it easier to color fast, like spinning fast like that?
Not necessarily, because especially if you're getting taller, then it could kind of tear. Alright. So just a quick adjustment to the cord. Some of these walls here. And so there are indeed two ways you can do it. My favorite is kind of like to get the top close to closed, but not all the way. But you could also close it up all the way, which is kind of a protruding stem part, if you would. Alright. So now I'm at like a quarter in terms of my diameter here at the top. Perfect for me. Just gonna kind of shape this just a little bit more, make it a little bit taller, and scrape all the slip away.
It's very ASMR.
What's that?
It's very ASMR to hear the scraping.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully people with headphones on YouTube video will enjoy that. If my camera will even pick it up. Alright, so from this point, I'm not worried about a level top at all. That's gonna look kind of neat in my opinion. But I'm gonna do kind of a clawed motion to squeeze and pinch this together. And this is going to create kind of like the natural folds that you'll see for a pumpkin.
Are you
So-
actually sealing it?
Yep. So if you look closer, there's a seal hole. In fact, for a camera, I'm going to pull this off, bring it closer that way, so the hole at the top's sealed entirely, and now I can kind of play around with shaping. So there's some people that will continue to like pull this taller as if you would pull the handle. So try not to add too much water, but you want to keep your hands wet. The taller you can go, the more you can kind of like twist. Or one of my favorite things to do is like do like kind of a pull it enough, create kind of that winding twist. A couple of my other friends who are also pumpkin makers around this time. I have one friend across country in Mountain. She actually makes her forms entirely enclosed first, so the traditional way, just kind of pinching it all together. And then we'll actually pull the stem separate, as if you do a handle, and slip and score it on later. Hers are also really nice as well, but it's kind of like this because it's kind of all inclusive. And one actual cool thing that I like to do here is, even though it's closed, I'm going to actually cut this at the top. So I'm going to kind of very carefully cut the top here. So almost as if I were making a lid. And actually I'm going to do that last. So starting that, but I'm going to add the ridges first. So to make kind of gourd like ridges, pumpkin like ridges, I'm going to take away the extra clay at the bottom first, just cutting all that stuff away. And in general, I try not to trim my pumpkins. So I get the shape exactly how I want it while it's still on the wheel. There'll be a little bit of hand trimming you'll see next week. But I grabbed kind of a thicker rib here. You could use just your wood rib or even the stick tool if you don't have access to something like this. And I'm going to just press into the side and just go all the way up to create kind of pumpkin lobes. And I do this while the air is trapped in here, so that way it can still kind of balloon out a little bit. So I recommend an uneven number of lobes as you go. Very few pumpkins will just have 4 little things on them, so I'm going to try and go for like 7 maybe. And so you just want to make sure you're going all the way up, back down, and I usually go in and smooth it out after the fact. So then you can go in with a sponge afterward and just kind of press in, smoothing that out, getting the lobes even more defined. And then, because I pre-scored the top, it's coming apart a little bit, but I want that, so I'm just going to continue to take my pin tool and pull this top off, and I like to kind of flare the edges a little bit just with my hands to create almost like a leaf like texture towards the top, kind of pulling the edges out. And because the clay is so wet, I'm going to sit it on top and just kind of press it on. I don't necessarily have to slip and score it. But I kind of just roughly see where it fits.
Oh, so you cut it, but it'll fire attached.
Well, I'm just going to press it like this,
Uh-huh.
but it's going to fire attached or dry attached. So, and I kind of just like those rougher edges just a little bit more, and you can kind of play around with just sinking it in just a little bit with it detached as well. It's those fine details. And you could also do extra things where you like, once it's a little bit drier, maybe at that leather hard stage, continue to like roll out coils, and you could do like smaller like tendril vines coming from the top. Yeah, those are the basics. Any other questions? Well, I still have What's that?
To improve.
Thank you. And so I'm actually not going to cut it from the back just yet. I'll let it get a little bit drier first, because if I cut it now, it might distort or misshapen a little bit. So I'll wait until like I'm closer to between cheese hard and getting to that leather hard stage before cutting it. But